Greetings, good people. Thank you so much for making the time to join us today. My name is Nyarai Gitonga. I'm a brand manager at NG Support Services and a mental health advocate. I shall be co-hosting this session with Grace Nzula of Atara Solutions. For the first timers, the Get Right with Atara Solutions webinar platform seeks to demystify issues with entrepreneurship and employment. We're in partnership with the Lego Academy, a software development and capacity building institute, as well as NG Support Services, a brand management and communications company. A quick shout out to our sponsors, KM Network and Remote Communications. We appreciate you. This is our second season. We've had 10 episodes between June and August of this year, and we thank you for your support thus far. If you've missed any of our previous webinars, please visit our YouTube channel at Atara Solutions. Kindly subscribe and click the notification button. You can ask any questions you may have for Kalekye on the Q&A or chat section, and we'll get through as many as possible, as many of them as possible today. Some notable facts: 22% of businesses fail in the first year, 30% in the second year, 50% in the fifth year, and 70% in the 10th year. Now, this is the narrative our webinar series is trying to change. Today, we have the privilege of having the highly successful media personality, Kalekye Mumo, who is a business owner, entrepreneur, event organizer, content creator, clearly multi-talented. And she's here today to share with us how to grow a personal brand while in business. Kalekye, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure. The introduction has made me feel so humble. But I'm really honored to be here and to just share my experiences doing business.
Brilliant, brilliant. I think a good place to start is always from the beginning. So could you help us understand what an individual's personal brand is and what it contains or consists of?
Okay, so an individual personal brand really revolves around who you are as a person first, and where you want to place yourself in the market. The market spans from different ages, different interests. And so you would, first of all, in my advice, I would always say, pick something that you are passionate about. Passion is a very key operator in designing your personal brand. For instance, if you are passionate about fashion, and you want to be an icon or a brand within that fashion industry, then you decide, do I have the talent to either make outfits or design shoes? Then you go into that, use your talent, and then now design your brand around that and create your personal identity around it, saying, what do you stand for? What are your values? I think the same elements that you think about when you're doing a business plan and a business vision would come into play, only that now it has a lot to do with who you really are as a person.
All right. And how do you go about building this brand? Because you can exist, and when you want to figure out all that, how do you then build it into something that actually monetize?
So that's really where the trick is, and I think for where I came from in terms of getting into a market that really at the time was not being monetized as influencing or as making a mark as your personal brand. Your brand was identified by the station you work for. And that's essentially how my brand was initially designed. And that design was obviously not my personal design, but the design of the station, because the station has its own DNA, it has its own target audience, it has people who it's specifically tuned to. And so for the longest time, I was speaking to 18 to 24-year-olds, and I started working at KISS when I was in my late 20s. So that meant I had to rework how I think, and I worked there until I was 40, but I still had to sound like a 20-year-old. So what happened is a lot of the audience and also my clients would think that that's who I speak to essentially as a person. So the hardest thing I had to do was to translate and move myself to a place where I am my own brand, standing as a woman in her 40s, what does she stand for? What are the kind of communication she talks of? And then builds that brand. But the biggest thing, despite, you know, the difference in the audiences, was creating that essence of being credible, being a person who will always share something because they care to share, and that's a bit of my nature, and will always help somebody when they're down, help their sister when they're down, and that also had a little bit of elements that came up in my personality on the radio show. So how I did that was now decide, who am I as a person? What are my values? So how do I take those values that I hold dearly and design them into a trustworthy brand? Because no matter the business you're in, your brand needs to have certain values that are viewed as trustworthy, that are dependable, that deliver, that stand by their word at all times. So those things wouldn't change even if it was you as an individual. It comes down to your core values as a person. Are you a person who keeps time? So then your business as a brand must keep time. If you're not, then it will come out in your business, because you are the business. That's where the difference becomes. Whereas, you know, you have a business where you go, you open the door, you lock the door, you are the business. And I feel like sometimes where we are in the world now, we need to realize that even our businesses that we say that is XYZ Limited, that is, you know, this business name, it still has to have a bit of your personality. People have begun being more interested in who's behind the business than just the business. So you still have to bring yourself into it. And that's why it's important to build your personal brand.
Now, for the few who somehow want to be out there, but not really be out there, some people really want to not represent their brands. Is that possible, and would it really work out in the long term?
Well, it's got two facets towards it. If you are running the business as yourself, you're a sole proprietor, for example, and you run the business yourself, then you need to decide, whoever your target market is there something or someone that can represent it fully with all the attributes of the human nature? Because that humanizing any product, any service, any brand seems to be what people connect with more today. And if you think about some of the products or some of the services you like, it's because you had some human touch or human feeling that was generated in you. Whereas back in the 80s and 90s, you know, it was really about buying a product that works and we go, you know. Now we're more aware, we have more information. And so if you're going to run your business and you don't want to be at the forefront, this then becomes a situation of, who can I use? Which influencers can I get? I find that people are afraid to use influencers because they think they're too expensive. Whereas if you compare the kind of marketing you're going to need to do if you were to go onto broadcast media, whether it's radio or TV or print media, the amount of money you're going to spend there, and what are the returns? Will you get the same touch feeling? It's not the same, and the amounts are not going to be, you know, the same. So then I would advise that you need to get somebody who represents your brand to give that human touch, even if it's not you.
So either way, you need to have a face that represents your brand. You cannot be faceless. I
don't think you can be faceless. I mean, let me just give you an example. Even back on our radio, we had a specific face that was, you know, made up by the company. They would print out that person's face and her attributes, and that would be stuck on the notice board in the studio. So every time you're speaking, specifically if you're doing a show on your own, that's who you look at and you remember, that person I talk to looks like this, dresses like this, talks like this, and that becomes your target audience. So in relation to how they view you, they start to see you in the same kind of way because you're relating to them on a one-on-one. So I think it's very important that we have a visual of who we're talking to and who represents that market that we're really going for.
Yes. Okay, you didn't bring up the topic of influencers and using them. And you yourself have over 1 million followers across your platforms. how did you go about becoming an influencer? Because I think you also have a lot of people trying to make money off social media because it's one of the readily available platforms, especially now during the COVID times. How did you go about building a platform to such heights?
I think, first of all, I'd like to say we were privileged that when social media was really kicking off and Twitter was starting, Facebook was starting, I was on air. So it kind of had an added boost to where we were positioned at the time. It's not just by luck to build the numbers, it's just the positioning was right. That we were on air, we were introducing the country to these platforms because we had to be the go-to, know-it-all kind of team. And so we therefore had enough information to look around and say, okay, if we're introducing these platforms, we're on them first. And each time we refer to them, people want to go and find out where we are, they will follow the people that they know. So that, first of all, was an advantage to kind of grow. But eventually, then it becomes about, do you know who your personal audience are? Who are you speaking to? Yeah. Who do you really want to respond and react to your information? So if you're clear on who you're talking to, then your posts need to sound a certain way. Your pictures need to look a certain way. And I think in terms of one of the things I find a lot of people letting up on is the quality of pictures they want to post, particularly for those who are doing online brands and online shops. What happens is that you have a photo that isn't quite a good quality, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you hire a photographer. It just means that if you're going to do online marketing, then I need to be appeased by sight. Yeah, the same way in a shop window, you won't just put models and put clothes and they just look meh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just meh.
Yeah.
So the same way you need to treat your pages. And you also need to know the people I'm talking to, which platform are they more likely to connect with me as the person who is influencing them? Are they people who speak more on Twitter? The audience on Twitter is totally different from the audience on Facebook, and the audience on Instagram is very different from the other three. So who are you? Who are the people you are talking to? Where do they most likely participate? And this you'll have to do by trial and error half the time, you know, unless you really have done your research well and you know that your audience are found on Twitter. Twitter, short, quick question type of conversations and informative conversations. So it's not picture-based. So if you are a fashion shop, you have no business going to do your marketing on Twitter because you need pictures to sell. You know what I mean? Like your audience. Then you know that for Facebook, you have the more mature audience, and you also have the what we call the C and D. The classes are different. The type of people who are on Facebook are different. They don't like the kelele of Twitter half the time. They don't. They feel Instagram is too modern for them. So if you know your audience is probably older or is in that CG market, they are possibly going to be on Facebook than they would be on these other two platforms. Yeah. If you're looking at Instagram, yes, you have a younger audience, but not necessarily, you know, the guys who are 16 to 18. Those ones, they'll go to TikTok because they like things even faster, you know. So, and there are businesses who will want to work with TikTok. Yeah.
Definitely.
Because they are speaking to that 16 to 20-year-old. So the thing is, do you know who you really want to target with your communication or with your product or with your service? Where is it going to work the best for you? You have to have an understanding of how the three or whatever the four products are that are out there for social media, and understand who is really mostly on which of the platform. What are they normally looking for? How do they like to consume information? The good thing about all these platforms is they actually do give you the report. So you'll know if you post, like I learned a long time ago, people like posts with my face or myself in it. If I'm not in it, they don't really respond, not so much. It's either myself or my family, because maybe that's a part of me that they don't know. They like those kind of things, and they enjoy also the videos, because then they get to see a little bit more of my world. And so therefore, if I'm influencing for a product, I would therefore recommend that we do more IGTV kind of videos, which are slightly longer, because then I walk through, for example, an experience of a product for them, and they'll be more engaged because they see what I'm doing. I've also understood that maybe most of my audiences trust me enough to know that if Kalekye said it was good, then it must be good. But that's because I built myself as a trustworthy person who will only share the good things that I find, and I will let you know because of that caring character that I built. So those are the kind of things that help.
All right. I noticed, we had an interesting situation where from the original topic we had set for you, and you actually gave us feedback from your fans that it was not necessarily inclusive. Yeah. And I think you sent me that feedback in real time, because you WhatsApped me, then you called me even before I could open the message. How are you able to identify such helpful feedback from your countless platforms with a lot of followers? How are you able to do that? Do you have systems to do that?
Well, I think feedback will always be valuable, and you always need to pay attention to feedback. And you can always tell what's good feedback, what's just negativity, or what's meant to just seek attention. Because a lot of people will reach out just for the sake of attention, and they'll write something nasty just to get your attention. However, in a case like this, where we had set out with a title that we had not noticed might not be all inclusive to our audiences who are here, and thank you very much. I see we're at 147, 146 there.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. But what I say is that you get to have relationships with the people that you talk to. And at least that's how I like to build it. Because from the time I was on radio, we got to build relationships because we had consistent callers, and then you kind of got to know what type of people they are and whether they're giving you trustworthy confirmations of things that are happening, and you build a relationship. So for instance, in that case, the person who wrote to me is somebody whose opinion I value, and is somebody who is in the PR and marketing industry, and therefore they have a keen eye to certain things because that's what they do. And so I've gotten various comments, but from that particular person, I'd be like, okay, I know where she's coming from, I know her work, therefore I can trust what she's telling me.
Yes. So you shared it with me because you actually care about your followers. Because most people have it.
No, I mean, let's face it. Okay, this is how I live my life as Kalekye. This is how I live my life. If I'm going to participate in something, I want it to be brilliant. I want it to be great for all parties involved. It is of no value to me if I let you go out with something that sounds non-inclusive. It will not only reflect poorly on me, but maybe it will affect you more, yet you're the one giving me a platform.
Yes.
That it will be viewed like, Atara Solutions are not keen, or they don't care. I would not want that to happen to somebody who I associate with, but that's a personal decision.
Yes.
That's how I do my business. That I'm keen to make sure that we are all happy, we're all viewed well. I know there are people who like to laugh at others' failure or say, they'll go and umia by themselves, but I wasn't built that way. I wasn't brought up that way. So that's not something I would be left doing. And I always hope that the people I deal with will also treat me with the same accord. That's how I look at it. Yeah.
Brilliant. So you've clearly built your brand, and you recently won one of the winners of the CNN Vogue Challenge.
Yes.
Were you surprised? As in, that's a big accomplishment. Was it planned? Like, how did that come about?
Let me just tell you what happened that day. So
please,
it was a Sunday when I happened to, I mean, most Sundays I'm not really online. Like I'll post in the morning, we have our online church service, finish that. And for the rest of the day, I might not really be online. So it was in the evening. So I see, hey, this Vogue challenge is going on. Oh, wow. But I must participate. That's just, I saw Pinky's and I said, hey, Pinky, what's this? I didn't even know. They says, oh, it's just this Vogue challenge. Just Google, guys are doing it, trying to push them, the Vogue people, to see that there are more faces in the world that are not necessarily your white or curvy or slender or whatever, model bodied. So when she explained and I went and I Googled, I was like, Allah, this is so good, because it's pushing for us to say that Black faces need to be on the covers of these magazines too. So I then quickly went through my photos folders. Again, it's very important if you're pushing yourself as a brand personally to get lots of photo shoots done in different styles. My advice is please keep them sane, keep them clean, because even the clients look at how clean you look, and how decent you look. It matters, because that's who your brand is. You won't get the high-paying clients if you look a loose kind of way. I mean, say. So I called up on my designer guy. I told him what's happening, and he's like, "Don't worry, I got you." And so that's how I ended up posting. And for me, I just posted and I moved on. I was happy to be part of this movement. Happy to say that Vogue, you've never hired any Black photographers or any. I think there are only 2 covers that have had Black people, and I was really happy to join the campaign. And I moved on with life. And lo and behold, the beauty again of putting your information very well on your different platforms is that I have my email address there. And so I go and I see an email from CNN. I'm even like, we get a lot of rogue emails.
Yeah.
So I'm like, is this a real thing? So I quickly again call my IT guys and I'm like, is this a real email? So he checks, he Googles the person who sent it, like, yeah, she actually works for me, and respond. What I liked about that was they saw the picture and they called and they said, listen, this is a story we're doing and we believe that your picture needs to be used. Can we use it? They asked for permission, which is something I don't find with the Kenyan blogs and newspapers and things here. They just take your photos and run with it, which really is actually wrong because there are rules as to how you can use people's content. And I remember them saying that please confirm that you have agreed for us to use it, and the photographer give us his name and confirm that he has agreed for us to use it. Because, so I told them, but they're my photos, I paid for them. They said, no, it's his creativity on behind the lens. And I feel like that's just a sidebar, but that's just something that a lot of our Kenyan newspapers and journalists and bloggers, they don't follow the rules. And one day they will get sued. I'm just saying, one day they will get sued.
You're just saying.
I'm just saying.
All right. So we've clearly established that you're an entrepreneur and a business owner. And I think a good place to start is a business that is directly tied to your brand, and that is the KM Network. Tell us what this is all about and what motivated you to start it.
Wow. So I think one of the dreams that I've always had, other than I dreamt for a very long time as a young person to be on radio, was now that I have done the dream. You know what it's like when you've had a dream, you've done it, and then you're like, okay, what next, And I had the dream that, okay, why can't I have my own show with my own name? And that was where we started in, the planning. I was like, okay, my own show, my own name, how does it work? Then I started working at K24 doing the show Talk Central. This was my second stint doing TV. My first was doing the show, The Couples Show, which was also hosted by K24, but produced separately. And so I realized that, okay, then I have another talent, and this talent is interviewing people and being able to get them to feel comfortable and that they can trust me and share their stories openly. And so once I had done that, I felt I had grown, done it for 2 years. My contract was coming to an end. I was like, instead of renewing it, why don't I now get on with this dream of starting your own product? And that really, let me be honest, was just looking at what Oprah had done with her network, that she had even transitioned from just being a TV person and gone digital early, before people were catching on this digital wave.
Yeah.
A lot of people thought she was crazy for shifting, but I kind of thought, okay, she really wants to have the rights to how she produces, what she does on her content, how she does it, give it its own personal touch. And that's what I felt I would, would be amazing to do for myself. And bit the bullet, went into self-employment and created KM Network. And KM Network basically is a multimedia platform or company that is supposed to house various products. So right now it's the House of Live and Uncut, which is a show based on changing people's perspectives on different values and systems in life. So it depends on what the topic could be, anything broad from relationships to your health to anything that is going on, particularly associated with me because it's Kalekye Mumo Live and Uncut. So a lot of the things that we do will be relatable to either experiences I've had or experiences I'm going through. And then during the COVID period, was like, okay, so now I wanted to do a second thing. We're not going to shoot Live and Uncut, at a location and meet people due to the COVID-19 WHO requirements. So what else can I do? And I'm here, I've invested in this equipment. What am I going to do? So I have the podcast equipment. So I decided, okay, why don't I check out what's this IG Live? It was just one random day. I set up my microphones and everything. And I was like, okay, this can work. And by the next day, 4 o'clock, I'd made a decision, made a poster, 6 p.m., boom, we were on air. And that was April the 1st. It was a very end of March decision, very, very random. But again, my heart was called to it because radio will always be my first love. It will always be my first love. And so I had missed that. And I thought to myself, while everybody is running to do different live shows and everything, what do people really love? And always they ask me about radio. So I thought to myself, since I'm not sure I want to work for anyone's radio station right now, let me create my own little one, live from my own house, but then I can also have valuable conversations that are skewed to just hear different perspectives of relationship and life that can then again be used to influence and change perception. Because for me, if you even go to my website, that's kalekyemumo.com, the thing you'll see there is that I really want to help people change their perspectives on different life issues, because we are so caught up in being stuck with culture, or that the societal mind shift of the crew is doing this and should be. But when we actually discuss it, and what I like about KM Radio is that I get to then reach audiences from across the world. And for them, they are tuning in because they remember the Kalekye Mumo on radio, the legacy that I left. So again, it's really good to work well and, leave a good imprint, because then I would have thought this is almost 5 years later that I'd be having people who were with me and telling me, I started listening to you when I was a very young kid. Now I'm working. And I'm like, oh God, I just felt old, but it's okay. It's okay. Fine. And so in that respect, that was how KM Radio started. And what the plan is with KM Network is that it can host different productions under that network, whether they are going to be podcasts, whether they are going to be contents that can go on a mainstream media, because there's still mainstream media that is highly consumed in our country because of the fact that majority of the country doesn't have Wi-Fi and doesn't have enough money to buy data. So there's still that audience that is the majority that will rely on mainstream media, being the radio and the TV station. So there's opportunity to grow in that perspective. And one thing that I'd tell anyone who is looking at doing that kind of a direction of using the media, be patient. It doesn't always come out that you will get to the top. Like for instance, when I started my YouTube channel, because my conversations are more, they force you to think. It's not the hype, it's not wild, it's not sexual, it's not stunting. So majority of the time you won't get as many people who are the online type of people who will tune in. You know, for them, they're still young and want these other things. Now, I'm talking to somebody who is mature and wants to grow themselves in a certain way. You could be in your 20s, but you are very clear on the kind of human being you want to be, the path you want to take. And that's the person I want to speak to. The person who knows they want to make a difference in their life and they don't want to just be another person in society. And so if you're doing that, you need to be patient because you won't always get the high numbers, but don't give up. That's it. And it doesn't mean because I was successful on Kiss that I'll be successful on another platform. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And I'm sure many people will be wondering, since it's a network, are you open to hosting other content that's not produced by you?
Yes. So the way I'm modeling this is entirely the same way Oprah has done it, where she does host other shows that belong to other people. And of course, terms and conditions apply, the quality of how it is, and whether it resonates with something that I am happy to be associated with, just like any other brand would. So that is something that I am looking at opening. What I wanted to do, because I've done KM Networks, now this is where we finished 1 year in April. So, you know, heading to our second year. So of course I needed to establish myself and establish what I'm doing, but I am open to that. And anybody who would be interested in finding out whether their show would meet the standards, then they would be open to email me on info@kalekyemumo.com, but I know you'll share that later. Just so that we see what kind of content or how does it resonate, what's the quality, and what are going to be the terms of you getting it on my platform.
All right. I think you guys have had it first here on our humble platform. The Kalekye Mumo Network is open to your content, so we shall forward you an email with all the things you need to be doing. Now, you are also a partner in business with another well-known media personality in an event management company. Tell us about it. How did it come about, and who is this media personality you're partnered with?
Okay, so basically, this particular person, I knew him in the year 2001. We met around that time. He was fresh out of high school. I was at my first job after campus, and he had the tenacity. I've never seen somebody who is passionate and determined. When he sets his mind on something, he will go all the way to make it work. He is a great man. He's very clever, very talented, and that's DJ Mr. Drew. So if you've ever listened to DJ Mr. Drew, that is my business partner. His formal names are Andrew Ciro. And so with Ciro, I mean, we knew each other back in the day where I used to work at Homeboys. When Homeboys started their first office, I was their first manager, and I was at the mall. And so he really wanted to be a DJ. So I used to be there every day trying to beg them to teach him. And guys, they were not ready to take on any students at the time. They hadn't even decided to do the Homeboys DJ school, nothing. And because of that, coming to the office every day, we got to talk a lot, and we became friends and kept in touch. And even when I proceeded to move away to learn production elsewhere, we kept in touch and eventually got to work together at Radio Africa. He's done production. He's been a TV host at KTN, I believe. And so now he was at Radio Africa and he was managing the TV side. And when I left KISS, he said to me, I'd just done my party for my birthday, the 40 off 40. I was celebrating my 40th and losing 40 kilos. And yes, It was easier before 40. Let's not discuss how things change after 40. But anyway, at the time, that particular event, I organized myself. I wrote my proposals. I got all my sponsors and everything by myself. And I knew how I wanted it to look and, you know, organized a small team, did it, and it was a lot of work. So he said to me, you know, there's so many people who would love to achieve what you achieved. There's so many people who'd love this. Why don't we start something together? And, you know, we've worked together well. And I was like, hey, you know what? I've just left KISS. I'm not yet sure what I really want to do. But that's an idea. Since I'm already doing some PR for somebody at a different company, then why don't we hook up? So we took some time, and by the end of 2016, we registered the company, the Drew Star Alliance. So he's Mr. Drew, and he used to call me K-Star. He always used to call me K-Star. In his head, he believed I'd be a star. I do not know why. That one you'll have to interview him yourself to ask him. But that's what he called me. So Drew Star. And that's how we formed it, the Drew Star Alliance. And so we initially did start being purely an event company, but we realized that we are not in a position to employ, but we are two great minds who are able to come up with great concepts for your event. So what we do now is we call ourselves an event concept company, where we design concepts for different organizations that would like to have events look a certain way. So you would come to us and tell us, we want to have this event, we want to target these people, these are the kind of things we want to happen at this event, but we need something special, we don't know how to do it. So we would come back, draw out a plan top to bottom with interesting ideas to get your event to look as good as it is. Now, at that point, then you have the option to buy the concept and go and get it executed elsewhere, or pay for the concept and engage us to then create your event. Yeah. So we do a lot of outsourcing from that perspective. So that's how that company came together. Yeah.
All right. We shall share all the website links and everything. Don't worry about it, guys. I think now we've discussed businesses that you publicly associate your name with, but you also own a couple of businesses that you don't associate your brand with. And why is that? And you've owned them for over 10 years. Why would you not? That is a long time, my dear. Why would you not?
It is.
Yes.
So the other business, which was kind of like the first business to start in partnership, is a salon. And back at that time, this is 10 years ago, there was no social media first. There was, it was a time where people really did not even know what I looked like. Again, that was a personal choice. I kept off a lot of different places just because I felt that the two things should not be associated until I'm completely grounded in the media business. And you'll find that it's important that you do so just because you want to be able to be sure that you're not being swayed in your mind. And again, lucky for me, I got into it when I was in my late 20s. But so when that business started, and I discussed this with my partner, we're happy to share the name. It is, yeah, we did. We're happy to share the name.
I'm not going to say anything because I was not sure. Please tell us.
So it's called Black Butterfly Hair Salon, and we've run it in partnership. When we started, the initial idea was that we were not going to run it like a typical salon. We really wanted to be more like a service apartment. You know how you do a service apartment and you are running the reception, you're running the cleaning, you're running maybe the shampoo girls, and you rent out stations and the stylist pictures and stuff. That was our initial plan. And the reason being, I've always loved getting my hair done. My friend and I have been best friends for, I don't even know, 20, I can't remember how many years. It's been a long time. We've been, wait, is it 20, almost 30? Anyway, we met up when I think I was 12 or 13. So you can imagine, it's a long time. And we were neighbors. So we've been friends for a long time. And we always used to go and get our hair done at the same place, make a whole Saturday of it and everything. And we got very close with the stylists and all those. And they would tell us what they're going through. And we always used to tell them, you've been making our hair for X amount of years. Why haven't you started your own place? Why don't you want to have your own salon or your own business? They're like, oh, it's hard. But unless we're, renting spaces, now that had started in the city center, but we were in Westlands. So we said, okay, maybe we'll try it for Westlands. But lo and behold, the people were afraid to do that renting business. So we ended up having to learn everything about making a salon business. And that's just long and short of it. So one of the things that we realized early, even when trying to hire stylists, is that the minute they heard that I was co-owner, everything changed. The demands for money went skyrocketing. They just decided you must have money, which is a lie. But I'm just saying, I don't refuse that money can come or is there, but it just became more about who I am as opposed to the brand itself. And now remember, this is a partnership. It's not Kalekye Mumo Hair Salon. You see, it's a partnership. So it has to have its own life, first of all. I didn't want a situation that if I was not there today, the business would not run. And so we made a decision because a lot of people started saying, if it's owned by Kalekye, it must be very expensive. It's not expensive, but it is okay. It's all Jesus.
Yes, you do.
So we made a decision that I would remain as a silent partner as far as our target market is concerned. They need not know that I am part of that business. They just need to know the business. So the business had to flourish on its own. The business had to lead by itself. And so we also realized that when I took the seat back as just continue to be myself, Kalekye, the influencer that people know, when I share about the salon as a user, because I am still a user, then we get more of the feedback that is positive. People want to try the services because I am trying it as a brand, not an owner.
Yes.
And that's how we've been, by God's grace, it's not been easy. There've been ups and downs. I mean, about almost 2 years now, we lost all our staff. They were all poached.
Wow.
We were left with our receptionist and one beautician. Everyone, the cleaners, the shampoo girls, everyone went. So, I mean, just because I am a person who's known doesn't mean that business will be easy for me because the name is known. In fact, I feel like half the time it's harder because people have already made a decision about who they think you are. They have a perception of who you are. And they hardly give you room to be yourself, because who you know from what you've watched or what you've heard, that's the persona that I need to be on those platforms. And remember, if they're not my platforms, they have their own guidelines and rules as to who you are, what you sound like, because that company has its own target audience. That necessarily doesn't mean that's who you are. So I feel like being in the public has its positives and negatives, because you will get judged based on what people think, and what your perspective of who I am will be different from the 146 different people who are now watching this webinar, and each of them has a perspective. Now, you can't be the same to everyone. You can't. It's difficult, but you need to choose who you want to be and work with that. So I found that for the business itself in that particular time, because I was still on the media, where we were starting to grow, and we thought to ourselves, the minute we've associated, we're getting that kind of feeling that we will be too expensive. And let's face it, if you're in business, you need to be competitive with the people who are in the same business. There's no way I'd be running a business in the Westlands area and my prices are way higher than is the norm. I will close. I mean, you can't. So, but it was perspective and perception. And so that was a decision to take a backseat and not go shouting about it. So even today, when the blogs write about the people who own salons, my name will not appear there. and we are happy.
Happy. Oh, that's great. That's great. We have so many questions, so I'll get right to it. Let's try and keep the responses brief so we get through most of them. Cynthia Onyango is asking, what's for a business that has 3 or more partners or directors? How do you model the brand to represent the company?
Okay, thank you, Cynthia, for your question. So, I mean, if you are going to go into any partnership with anybody else, I think before you even agree to that partnership, you need to have written down what it is that you guys really want. You have to be on the same page. You have to have drawn out your vision and objectives for what the company is going to be doing and what the brand is supposed to represent. That has to be clear even before you start. Otherwise, you will clash and you will fail. You have to know whether you can get along with these people or not. Let me tell you, it's straight up. And sometimes you're better off not going into business with people who you're too close to if you cannot fight and be friends at the same time. It can ruin you.
Yes, yes. All right. Jackie Ngongo asks, she says, thank you for the informative session. Professionals shy away from social media for fear of sharing your views might come back to haunt you. What must you not share on social media?
Wow. Okay, Jackie. Let's put it this way. Especially if you're a professional, you're working for somebody's company, wherever you are. And I remember being told this even in primary school, where I went to school. Whenever we were going for any trip anywhere, we would be told, you are an ambassador of this school. Whatever you do will be reflected on us. Now, that is the same of any place you work or whatever company you represent. You may think it's your personal time, but not in the era of social media. Today, if I need to hire, I will always ask for your social pages. The first thing that will stand out to me is how you've written your name. If your name looks spooky and funny, and your name is Jackie, and you have written some sexy who, what, I'll be curious as to how do you think of yourself? Why do you need to use that name? Is there an area of your life that you feel needs to be fulfilled by calling yourself a certain way? So you will be perceived by how you handle yourself on social media. So my answer to you is only post what you wish the world, and I mean the world, to see you as. If you think that the world will have a problem viewing you in a certain way based on what you post, don't post it. Because that is your brand. Whether you are an influencer or not, that imprint has been established as a place where people will go to see who you are. So speaking as a person who uses my social media to influence, I only post what I believe will be influential and helpful to masses of people across a spectrum. I'll go posting something that they will not understand. For example, like I said, I am a brand that was viewed a certain way. I've changed my life to be who I am, but there are elements of myself that only my personal friends will understand. So for example, I have a personal Facebook page. Now in that personal Facebook page, the way I talk there, to my personal friends is not the same way I will talk to my audiences. Those are two very different things. So same way you will talk with your siblings or your very close friends at home, it's not the same way you'll talk to your boss. You have to know the difference. Yeah.
All right. Richard Jellican is asking, how do you monetize your brand?
Well, monetization of a brand, Richard, is really about those same values that we talked about early on this webinar. The values that you have established need to resonate with certain products or services. So for example, if a company came to me and said, oh, we want you to advertise for us, for example, let me give you condoms. And me, I'll be like, no, I cannot advertise condoms because me, I stand for abstinence until marriage as a brand. That's who Kalekye is. So it will not resonate. So if I need to monetize and I want to make the clients see me or approach clients, because you can approach clients with a proposal, your page has to stand out in a certain way that it speaks to certain people. Now, those are the certain brands you will approach with valid proposals showing how you can give them return on investment if they put their product on you. And being trustworthy, being of values, those things matter in your life wholesomely, because I will not agree to work with somebody who I feel will let me down. Yeah. So if you want to monetize, you need to create your page. And by the way, influencers today who are making more are not even the ones necessarily with big numbers. It's just that they've established a style of communication that will resonate with certain brands. And there's a brand out there for everybody. My advice to you is stop thinking about monetizing. Think about creating good quality content. The money will come.
All right. Ms. Kiama is asking, for online brands, would you advise someone to use their own names for their brands, or better still, how do you come up with a brand name mainly focused online?
I think that really depends on what it is that you want to sell. I mean, for example, if you are looking to sell beauty products, are you creating a line that is associated with Miss Kiama products, or are you creating something that is unique on its own? It doesn't have to be associated with you. It can have its own name. Yeah. And I say, if you're creating a product base or a service base that you are not it, like for example, I am a consultant. So when I'm going out to do anything as a consultant, my brand is KM, Kalekye Mumo, right? If I'm going to conduct something that requires hair products, then we will pull up Black Butterfly. If we're going to create event concepts, we will pull up Brewster Alliance. So each has its own function backed by whoever who's working on it. So my advice to you is be clear on what it is your product or your brand is doing. If you want to be an influencer, as Miss Kiama, the influencer, create a page that shows your influence capacity. Are you a travel vlog person? Are you showing people what life is like traveling? As simple as, look at what Owago has done. He's a comedian, but he loves to cook. And he just realized that him cooking and posting kawaida food, not that he chef 5-star food, no. He cooks for you some paste and ugali, and he works as their Owago's kitchen. Look at where he is now. Those brands looked for him. They went for him because they saw something. They saw that he's targeting the kawaida person who likes to cook kawaida food and still be given credit for it. Because there's some people who think that, like the other day, I have a group where I'm on for food. And it started as a quarantine cuisine kind of thing where, okay, now we're at home and we're constantly eating, so let's support each other. And I posted there my omena with spinach and ugali. And there were guys like, oh my God, that looks so nice. Yeah, you know, it really, it doesn't matter. But I always have to tell you, passion, passion, passion. Love it, whatever content you're creating. Be authentic. Don't do because Nani is doing. It has to mean something to you.
All right. That's great insight. Someone Oshua is asking, do you worry you may have lost a considerable and significant percentage of your audience as your brand evolves?
Do I worry that I may have lost the audience?
A considerable and significant percentage of your audience as your brand evolves over the times, from the radio station to now and how you'll be on later.
Okay. I think with life, one thing you have to understand, Simon, is that life evolves for a reason. You're not the same you were 5 years ago. You are not interested in the same things you were interested in 5 years ago. So in the same way that for me, the audiences that I had, my luck, I don't know whether it's God's blessings or what it is. A lot of the audiences I had back then are actually the audiences who have grown with me. The advantage of them growing with me, remember that was an 18 to 24. Now we're looking at them in their 20s to 30s, and some even in their 40s, who are now the people with money power. They're the people with money power. So that audience, even if it's less, for example, you may feel like it's less because You don't have the 18 to 24, but I'm not speaking their language anymore. What the 18 to 24-year-old likes now, really, I can't handle. Honest, I can't handle, but that's personal. But in terms of losing them, you will lose some and you will get new ones. So what I found interesting, even as I do KM radio, is that I have gotten a group of 20-year-olds who, I kid you not, I do not know what class they were in when I was on radio, but they're there now and they like what I'm doing now. So there'll always be someone somewhere for you. And don't worry too much about numbers. Your biggest concern is what content are you creating? What value is it? For me, I always say, if I can change one person's life, my job is done. I don't need to change 1,000, 100,000. Yeah. I don't need to come and tell you guys, 100K followers, this. Because it's God's grace, they can all leave you tomorrow.
I know it's true.
Don't brag and shout about things that are not you.
All right. We have Gamma Ketonga here asking, how often should you post photos and videos of yourself, like per day or per week? I'm assuming if you're trying to build a brand.
What I've realized with social media is that we have a pattern. Like everything else we consume, we have a pattern. Now, on a typical pre-COVID time, what's the first thing you do when you wake up? For most people, you pray and you take your phone. Others, they just take their phone, they don't pray, but that's on you. And that's, so at around 7 a.m., most people are on their phone. Then at 10 a.m., if you started work at 8, let's say most people start 8:30, 9, by 10 a.m., they are thinking about tea. What do? They go to their phone. Then at 12, they're thinking about lunch. So as they buy time and cooler your hour, if you're an employer, you know what I'm saying, they're on their phone, right? Then they go, they have lunch, they come back to work. Before they get back into the afternoon section, they check their phone, 2 o'clock. The next thing they will do is at 4 o'clock, they're counting down to home time. They'll be on their phone. Before they go to sleep at around between 9 and 10, they'll be on their phone. So if you just pick the hours that you typically, you yourself would go to the phone, those are the kind of hours. So that's a day plan, right? Now, there's an algorithm that works for how, for example, let me just talk about Instagram, yeah? There's an algorithm for Instagram on how your rotation of your post will go on your timeline. So what I noticed, initially I used to post like 3-4 times a day, but what happens is that if you posted at 7, then you post again at 10, the one of 7 will now not rotate as much as the one you've just posted. So what happens? Even if you had a powerful post at 7, if the people didn't see it at 7, they won't get to see it at 10. So if you post once a day, pick a time between those hours, your post will have high rotation because it will be the only thing that people see that was posted by you. So I recommend once a day. Yeah.
Wow.
I recommend once.
I feel like you've given us a cheat sheet. I don't know how the hours are long, but time is up. It is 9 o'clock and we like to keep time. Kalekye, thank you so much for coming on our platform and sharing all these insights with us. We really appreciate it. We have tried to get through as many questions as possible, guys, but we'll obviously send them all through to Kalekye and she shall respond on her various platforms. We shall take this discussion further. Today it looks like I was on my own, but I'd like to appreciate Grace Mzula of Atara Solutions and Eric of the Lego Academy, our IT partners. Don't forget to tune into Pearl Radio 96.9 FM in Nairobi. As always, we appreciate your audience for tuning in. Next week, we shall be discussing how to manage your debt, so tune in for that. Please follow our social media pages at Atara Solutions on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I have been your host, Nyaragi Tonga. We look forward to seeing you next week here. From all of us, it is good night. Keep safe and stay healthy.